guess when I'm thinking about the landscape, I am drawn to inconsequential, random, small, calm, quiet spaces where there's a kind of a possibility of contemplation, I guess. I've done a lot of work which is about woodlands. Not only is there a kind of horizontal structure, which I think about when I think about the fens and the marshlands and all of that flat land, I also think a lot about verticals. So I kind of want to crystallise something that I've seen in the landscape into a form that I can continually work with. I very rarely respond in exactly the same way when I'm making a final piece to what I've done in the sketches, but somehow they inform the decision making. And then this is the next stage, which is the workbook. And I guess there are trials here. I think one of the things that's probably really important is that I go straight from this stage onto the press. And I think that's, and why I think that's important is because the scale changes so dramatically from here to the press, and the medium is so different, and the way that it operates is so different, and the way that I make the marks is so different. I think that's really important because it keeps everything very fresh. So it's like starting again, really. So all of this is reinforcing an idea or some thoughts about what's going to happen without fixing it too much. I guess the most important thing for me every day in the studio is the mixing of the palette that I'm going to be using, because it's a kind of meditation on what the work's going to be. I use lithographic ink, commercial lithographic ink. I use just primary colours and I mix everything from, 2 blues, 2 reds, 2 yellows effectively in black and white. And I choose to do that because I want to have control over the colour that I mix. And I think somehow the fewer colours that you start with, the balance and the colours will coalesce with each other. They'll kind of sit more happily. All the work is done on the press, and it's a 1940s 3-tonne offset litho press. And what I love about the press and the way that it works is that I can make a very spontaneous, quite expressive mark, which will then be picked up by this roller and transferred down onto the paper eventually. And so there's a mechanical intervention which kind of creates a tension, which I think the tension's right at the very heart of the work. And the tension is between how this mechanical process kind of mediates the mark from being something very expressive and spontaneous into something more graphic. So what I'm working on today is actually effectively a ghost of a previous piece of work. Essentially, what happens is that when there's residual ink left on the plate, I can put another piece of paper in and effectively kind of absorb what's left on the plate. So there's a really nice kind of relationship or conversation, if you like, between the first and the second. And it kind of allows for the possibility of the series to develop. I might continue to do what I'm doing for maybe 3 or 4 hours. Then I'm going to let the piece of work dry, and that might take 4 or 5 days. Tomorrow I'll be working on a different piece of work, and I'm going to be just kind of scrolling around several pieces of work in the studio, which will mean that this piece of work in particular might take 6 or 8 weeks or even longer to complete, because I'll just keep coming back to it every few days and building up a few more layers. Perhaps a piece of work is complete for me when it allows for the viewer to kind of go on an intriguing journey through the work. And this is to do with a kind of tension between abstraction and figuration, if you like. It's clearly a landscape space. There's space that can be inhabited within the work, but then there's enough of a kind of tapestry weave of marks which are very abstract, which take you through the work and keep you within the work. Actually, I guess that's the important thing. Is there enough to allow you to stay calmly contemplating within the work?